Today, we're learning about one of the greatest sermons ever told called the Sermon on the Mount, and we brought some of our friends to play some of the biggest games we've ever done. Today on Mish Mash!
It's time to die in the Mish Mash, Mish Mash, Mish Mash, Mish Mash, Mish Mash.
We are playing some of the biggest games we have ever done on Mish Mash, and this one is an amazing one. This is the ultimate relay. We have two teams, each with 3 people. They have to carry a box of something very delicate that they have to pass to each person on their team to 3 different obstacle courses. First, we have this, the Adrenaline Rush. We have the Wipeout Big Ballers. Then we have the Ninja Warrior course. And whoever finishes first wins, unless what is broken inside deducts some points. So let's get started right now. Protect that box and what's inside, because it will cost you some points at the end. You guys ready? Yep. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, go! This team, both teams.
All right, they're making their way. Let's go, guys, let's go! This first round of teams, here they are. They're making it through the Adrenaline Rush quickly. But they have to protect what is inside, which I'm not gonna tell you what it is, but it's crazy. And let's see which team is on top as they go through the slide. Once they go through the slide, this will make or break what is inside. Oh no, oh no. I see something going, uh-oh, something's dripping. That's not good. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. This is not good. That's why I said you gotta protect it. But each team has passed on to the next. Oh no, that team just dropped. You gotta just grab the box from there. And you guys will just do your best. Do your best. Oh no, that is not looking good. Oh my goodness. All right, Ashley is making her way, but it looks like we've got this other team, George's team. George is making his way. But it looks like Ashley's got some gooiness that is gross. But it looks like the last team is making their way. Oh my goodness, it is getting a little gross in there. What is in there, I wonder? I know there's something that's slippery. I don't know what that's all about. You know what I mean? Still on the front. That's all right. He might get there. The first rock wall. This is crazy. And she's making her way down the slide. Hopefully she can protect that box. Here we go. She is on her final climb. This could be it, folks. This could be it. As she makes, oh, but George is making a comeback. What is this? Oh no, this is getting very, very close. All right, we're gonna have to go to the front because someone's about to win, and we don't know who it's gonna be yet. This can go all the way down to this. This is nuts. Oh, this is getting close. Who's gonna finish first? Who's gonna finish first? Oh! That team, victorious. All right, so let's see what exactly was in those boxes. You can see that, well, what's left of eggs, I guess. Not bad. So here's what the rules were. Depending on the amount of eggs you broke, that would add to your time. But because literally every egg is broken, we still have a winner, and that is this team. So if you're on this team, you guys are victorious. Great job. You did not protect the eggs, but you still have your own little punishment with all the egg yolks everywhere. But great job, guys. That was epic, pretty gnarly, but that's what we do here on Mish Mash. But right now, we're gonna listen about one of the greatest sermons ever told called the Sermon on the Mount. So let's hear more about that right now.
Hi guys, my name's Steven. Growing up, I loved to play with Legos. Not like your typical Lego master builder, where I would take these sets that came kind of pre-decided of what they're supposed to be, put them together nicely and let them sit on a shelf. Instead, I would make my own creations. I would just make stuff up and try to imagine what it could look like. And one of my favorite things to do was I would build these giant houses for my army men to live inside of. And of course, because I cared about my army men, I wanted to make sure that these structures that I built for them were safe, that my army men could live inside of those and be safe and not be harmed by anything. And so to test it out, what I would do is I would stand on top of the structures that I built. And not just me, but I would get my friends, I would get my neighbors, I'd get my brothers, and I would say, hey everyone, let's stand on these houses and see just how strong they are. And one of the things that I found out was that if the bottom of these houses wasn't good, like if I put it on a couch or if I put it on some carpet and the bottom wasn't good, no matter who stood on it, it would just come crashing down. But if the bottom was good, if we put it on concrete or if we had a good solid foundation for these structures, my army men were always safe. It reminds me of these verses. It's in the book of Matthew, chapter 7. It's verse 24 through 27. It says, therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. Hey, why don't we read that a few more times and talk about it?
2,000 years ago, Jesus gave the greatest sermon ever that we call the Sermon on the Mount. In it, he shares with us a better way to live, one that focuses on others and God instead of ourselves. And as followers of Jesus, he tells us to build our lives on a solid foundation. But what does that mean exactly? Well, let's hear more from our friends at the Bible Project.
In the first century, an Israelite rabbi began a movement that he said fulfilled the Torah and prophets, which were his ancient scriptures.
Jesus of Nazareth announced this movement among the powerless, the sick, and the poor who hungered for a world set right. He called these people to radical peacemaking and generosity, and he called this movement the arrival of the kingdom of the skies.
So remind me, what does Jesus mean by the kingdom of the skies?
Well, in the Bible, the skies are the ultimate image of God's realm where life and justice prevail. And so heaven arriving on earth means God's goodness, overcoming death and violence here on the land. In fact, the biblical story begins with this kind of heaven on earth place.
Oh yeah, the Garden of Eden.
Yes, walking with God in the garden, sustained by his love, building a home together. This is the way of life. But there was a gate and a path out of the garden that led away from God's life.
Why would anyone ever choose that path?
Well, a deceptive creature appeared in the garden who told the humans that God couldn't be trusted and that the good life could also be found by taking this easier way.
But this path leads to violence and death.
Right. And so the Torah and prophets tell the story about God choosing one family, Israel, and then giving them his Torah, his instruction, about how they can return to God's presence once again, how they could build homes and communities where God can come and live among them, how they could even demonstrate to the rest of the world the way back to God's life.
But even with God's instruction, Israel was also deceived, and they took another path.
Yeah, they were deceived by their own prophets and leaders who claimed to speak on God's behalf. The prophet Ezekiel called them wolves. People who not only take the wrong path themselves, they get others to follow them.
Okay, but now Jesus is claiming that God's kingdom has arrived with him.
Right. Jesus is creating a new group of Israelites who will take the right path. They'll reject deceivers and build something that lasts if they accept this calling. And so, in this closing section of the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus presents a choice.
Enter through the narrow gate. Because wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to ruin, and those who enter through it are many. How narrow is the gate, and how constricted is the road that leads to life, and those who find it are few.
Jesus wants to be clear. The path to life is not easy. It can feel confining at times, and you're likely to face difficult trials, but in reality, it is the way to true freedom.
So there'll be people who'll try to lead you off the path of life?
Yes, or as Jesus continues,
watch out for illegitimate prophets who come to you in the clothing of sheep, but inside they are wolves who snatch. Okay, but if they're disguised, how can I recognize them as wolves?
Well, pay attention, Jesus says, to how they live, whether their choices produce life and flourishing for themselves or other people, or not.
By their fruits, you will recognize them. Fruit meaning the outcome of someone's decisions, their way of life?
Right. If you're the kind of person whose actions produce diseased fruit, you won't last in God's new reality.
Okay, but life is more complex than that. I could produce enough good fruit to fool a lot of people, even fool myself.
Maybe, for a while, but you won't fool God, as Jesus says.
Many will say to me on that day, Master, Master, didn't we prophesy in your name, and cast out demons in your name, and do many mighty acts in your name? And then I will declare to them, I have never known you. So someone could imitate the actions of Jesus, but never be known by him?
Well, remember, Jesus warned about doing the right thing for the wrong reasons. If our motives are disconnected from our actions, we miss out on the life-giving, intimate connection that Jesus offers with himself.
A connection with Jesus himself?
Jesus isn't just presenting a choice about our behavior. The choice is about how we respond to him. Will we let him transform our ways to be more and more aligned with God's ways? Or, as he puts it next, where are we going to build our house? On the sand or on the rock?
Well, that's a memorable image, but kind of random.
Not really. In the Hebrew scriptures, the house of God is the most common phrase to describe God's temple, up on the rocky hill of Jerusalem. It's an image of how God's followers can build a community where God's heavenly presence can reside here on earth, just like the Garden of Eden.
So then, everyone who hears these words of mine and does them, they will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain came down, and the rivers came, and the wind blew, and they fell upon that house, but it did not fall, because the foundation was on a rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them, they will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain came down, and the rivers came, the wind blew, and they fell upon that house, and it fell. And its falling was huge. So, build places where God can reside and where Eden can spring to life, because ultimately, those places are the only ones that will last.
Yes. And just like Jesus said at the very beginning of the sermon, a city on a hill cannot be hidden. So let that light shine for everyone to see. Jesus is describing a new humanity who lives together by God's wisdom and love, creating communities of peace and justice in the midst of violence and death that surrounds on every front. In all the teachings of the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus has given us a bold vision for what this can look like. And through the rest of his own life, Jesus lived out that vision, and he offered his followers the choice to do the same. And now, that choice is ours.
Jesus has a lot of great things to say in this sermon. And as followers of Jesus, we should follow his words very closely, especially when he tells us to build our lives on a solid foundation, which is following his ways. But we all are given a choice on how we want to live. So, what are you going to do? When we choose to build our lives on Jesus, we are choosing the best way. So remember what Jesus says: build your life on a solid foundation.